Welcome to Lead Pods, the official leadership podcast from USMB for pastors and church leaders, where our goal is to increase our impact together.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to episode 89 of USMB Lead Pods. My name is Matt Ersman. Once again, very grateful to have you with us. Today, we're kind of continuing the conversation that we had last time on Lead Pods, where last time I interviewed Pastor Terry Hunt as he talked about how he was stepping down as the Eastern District Minister. And today we're joined by the dynamic duo of Tim and Donna Sullivan, who are in a similar stage of life. Tim and Donna have been leaders in USMB circles for 3 decades in various roles, and both of them are also in the process of transitioning out of their current positions. Tim's been the Southern District Minister for several years. Donna's been on USMB staff as bookkeeper and all kinds of other things. So today we hear from them some reflections on how the district and our denomination has changed over the years, some things they're excited about as they look forward to the future of our denomination, what they're personally excited about as they branch into retirement. And then again, similar to Terry, we also talk a little bit about succession plans and how they chose to do that for themselves and ways that we can all, as church leaders, keep that in the back of our mind. Tim and Donna have just been steady and faithful leaders for a long time, and it was really just good for me to hear from them as they reflect on their time of ministry, and I think it will be encouraging to you as well. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll get right to Tim and Donna Sullivan.
Recent research within the USMB network has found a shortage of young people pursuing full-time ministry opportunities. What are the potential causes, and what can churches do to help prepare the next generation of leaders? Join the USMB family for a webinar addressing the current leadership development landscape on Tuesday, December 5th at 10:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. The webinar will double as a live Lead Pods recording as host Matt Ersman talks with Wendell Lowen, Tabor College Professor of Youth, Church, and Culture, Kyle Goings, USMB Next Gen Chair, and Joanna Chapa, Multiply Regional Mobilizer. It's a conversation you won't want to miss. Register for the webinar at www.usmb.org.
All right, my friends. Well, today I'm excited to talk to two friends of mine, two friends of the USMB family for many years. We're joined by Tim and Donna Sullivan, who have been in leadership both in USMB nationwide and the Southern District for a very long time. Tim and Donna, thanks for being with us today.
Glad to be here. Thanks.
I'm not sure if I wanted to spoil this or not, but I can't help it. We're on Zoom, and Tim, you're an avid fisherman, and you've got a very large fish as your background, and I'm trying not to get distracted by the giant fish that's right behind your head right now. But it says a lot about your personality that I look at you, and there's just a giant fish right behind you, and I love it.
Yeah, it's a part of what I love to do. It's a memory of a very good fish that I caught not too long ago.
Very cool. All right, well, we've got kind of a lot of ground to cover today. One of the main reasons we're talking with both of you today is you've both been in your positions for many years now. If I have it right, Donna, I think you're in year 34. And then Tim, I think you're wrapping up 19 years as district minister. Is that right?
Yeah, we would be in our 20th year right now.
Yeah. So both of you, obviously, you've been in leadership for a long time, and both of you are kind of preparing to step down and transition on around the same time. So we just want to hear from you. You hear your story, your background, maybe what kind of led you to now. What's next for you? What's next for the positions that you hold? Kind of a lot of ground we want to cover. But again, a lot of people know you, but maybe for people who don't know you as well as I do, can you provide a little bit of background, either one of you, about your positions that you've held over the years? Maybe even explain a little bit what your current positions are. Let's just get a little bit of background before we get too far here.
Sure. I'm trying to make this a brief synopsis, but became B's back in the 80s. I went to seminary after finishing up our BA at Tabor, went to seminary, spent 4 years there, and then Parkview Church was looking for a pastor. Jared Burkholder had retired, or not retired, he'd taken a different position, a teaching position at Grace University. And so we were fresh out of the seminary, still wet behind the ears, not really a lot of pastoral experience, but Parkview Church took a chance on us. And so we came and spent 14 years in ministry at Parkview Church. And in that time frame, I became involved with district ministry. And, from the standpoint of being a pastor and getting involved, was on the search committee for the district minister when Roland Reimer retired. And as we began to go around and talk to people and tap shoulders and ask for suggestions, a number of them said, Tim, you need to do this. And it wasn't on my mind, but As we began to think about it, pray about it, we said, I have a heart and a passion for our conference of churches for the district. That wasn't something that I had coming into ministry at Parkview, but it was something that developed over the years. Mm-hmm. So we stepped off the search committee, and not too long after that, presto changeo, here we are. Yeah. We've been serving since 2004 as the district minister and spouse and wife.
Definitely. That's awesome.
Some have said the Queen Mother.
Well, that's awesome. And I know, so again, a lot of people listening probably know, but a district minister might be a new term to some people. So the way I've heard it described as a pastor to pastor, can you, again, just briefly explain kind of what the role entails, Tim?
Well, it's certainly bigger than a pastor to the pastor. And over the 20 or 19 and a half years, I would say that portion of it is only as big as the pastor's allowed to be. Mm-hmm. I remember when I was a pastor at Parkview, for a good portion of that, I didn't really feel like I needed a pastor. Mm-hmm. Roland was a friend, he was a confidant, but I didn't really see him as my pastor. And I think that's still true. There are a lot of pastors, they have their support groups within their churches or other places. I'm not sure that they really feel like they need a pastor. Mm-hmm. But there are times when as a pastor, as a friend, I get to walk alongside them through different things that they may be experiencing, or to engage with churches that are going through difficult things or fun things. And so, pastor to pastor is part of that. There's a lot of administrative stuff that goes on. As a district, we have commissions that do a lot of the work of the district ministry. And so between Youth Commission and Faith and Life Commission, stewardship and seek, there's just a lot of stuff that happens. And so I become a little bit of a coordinator, facilitator for those things. And that takes up a lot of my energy and work.
And I know over the years, I know the district layout has changed a little bit. So you're the Southern District, but no, not all of your states are necessarily what we would consider the South. We have the Central District, even though like your district of Kansas is pretty central, but I know that's changed a little bit over the years. Can you just remind us what states, what areas you're overseeing?
Yeah, at this point, it's Kansas, Colorado, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri. We have at least one church in each of those states. From time to time, we've either had a church or had potential relationships with churches kind of in the Texas area, but currently we don't have any member churches that are in Texas. Of course, Latin American Mennonite Brethren district is further south down along what I'd call, I think, the Rio Grande Valley. And there are a number of churches there, and Aaron Hernandez is the district minister for those churches down in the south.
Good deal. Before we get too much farther, Don, I want to hear from you a little bit. So I know your role has also changed quite a bit in your tenure with USMB. So I know bookkeeping is a big part of it, but I know it's grown over the years to so much more. So can you just remind us what all you've been involved with?
Hey, yes, my job has changed a lot over the years. It's grown a lot, but bookkeeping's probably for the conference is probably the biggest part. Event planning has become also a large part for all sorts of meetings, events, and especially the biennial national convention and national pastors conference. And then, a lot of admin stuff. I started out part-time and then very quickly it kind of grew to full-time, and now it's full-time plus, but but I've always enjoyed it. So it's been very good. I've been very blessed to be a part, and I definitely felt like it's a ministry.
Yeah.
And a lot of connections all across the country. So as we've been here in Kansas, but also in California, you make friends and relationships with people, and even in Canada, when we were in seminary, we had a lot of Canadian friends. So it's fun to be able to see them from time to time and keep those relationships even. So
I'm glad you said that, Donna, because I think you represent a lot of people listening, a lot of people in our district who they may not be a pastor on stage, they may not have titles, but you just said that you view your position as a ministry. And I think that's so important. And I guess I want to, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I think for people who have this kind of skills that you have, it might not be natural for them to think that they're able to be in ministry. But I know that is very close to your heart. So can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Okay, I do, with all the connections of people that I talk with all the time. I mean, I've been in my own office for years, but I feel like I'm in contact with people all the time. People sometimes ask me if I'm lonely, and I say no, because I always email or phone or whatever, and contact with people all over the country, even out of the country. So that's been very interesting. But I feel like I can be an encouragement to, even if a church secretary emails me and wants some confession of faiths or some brochures sent to them, I try to even encourage a little bit in those type of contacts. But being a part of all that's going on, like the church planting, all the work that we do, the resources that we provide to churches and pastors and leaders, I just view that as helping and assisting and encouraging and building up the church.
Yeah.
That's been very good for me, or
Fulfilling.
for me. Yeah.
When it's so, I think everyone who has worked with you, Donna, it's clear to everyone that you're not only very good at your job, but your heart shines through all of it. And like I was talking with JL Martin, and he just mentioned that, whenever there's a conference or a convention or a meeting or whatever, you go above and beyond to serve everyone and make sure they feel welcome. And it's just a very crucial element of our denomination. So you've done an excellent job.
Thank you.
And Matt, there's another layer to that is her district.
Mm-hmm.
As the district minister's wife. So
yeah,
on top of what she does for the U.S. conference, which is a ton, she also travels with me. She's seen as kind of we're seen a little bit as a ministry couple.
Sure. Yeah.
When we're in churches together, it's not just about me and what I'm doing. It's also about her. She'll lead in prayer for different things during church services when we're visiting places. Or, one of our churches has nicknamed her Mama Donna. It's one of our immigrant churches, but she is seen as, if not an equal, pretty close to an equal to me in ministry because of her role as my spouse and our role together in this.
Yeah. Well, I can tell by the look on Donna's face, she's very uncomfortable with all this spotlight. So we'll move on just for Donna's sake. We could heap praise for a lot longer, but we can move on here. So Tim, one of my big questions for you, since you have been in this role for 20 years and you've been in ministry for a long time, I'm just curious, as at this point in your career, looking back 20 years, how has specifically the Southern District changed? What are some things that you see now that are different from back then? And do you think that's different from ministry nationwide and B's nationwide, or are there anything unique about our district that you're noticing? I'd love for you just to reflect on that a little.
Sure. One of the things, as I was reflecting on, what I wanted to communicate, one of the things over the 20 years, and this goes even before me to Roland, I'm sure it was true when he was in this position as well, that there are 5 districts within the U.S. conference.
Mm-hmm.
Southern District isn't the largest, it's not the smallest, but it's one that has, I think, over the years, been the most connected to our larger national family. It's been one of the most supportive and engaged when conferences take place. Oftentimes, Southern District attendance at either national events surpasses that of any of the other conferences. Well, that's probably going to be true, at least of, some of the smaller conferences, but oftentimes even the larger district conference, we're just more participatory, engaged, interested, more aligned with what's happening within the larger family of Mennonite Brethren in the U.S. And financially, I think the Southern District has given as much or more when we do events or projects together. And so that's something that I've always been proud of, not because I instigated it, but because it was there when I came on board, and it has continued through the years.
Yeah.
Our Southern District family of churches sees itself as part of a larger family and cares about that. That's something that I thought about and something that I wanted to just say about our Southern District. And that would be a prayer I would have for all of our conferences. But that leads me to maybe a little bit of a flip side, which over the years, as our churches have grown and as our churches have become more diverse, and by diverse, what I mean there is ethnically and religiously diverse. So our doors have opened. Don and I are even a part of this transition of non-ethnic MBs. So early on, when we would go to conferences, they would say, "Who are you?" And we would say, "Tim and Donna Sullivan." And they would look at Donna and say, "So what's your maiden name? Are you a Friesen Fast, Reimer, or Ince?"
Yeah.
And we'd have to say, "No, she's a Garrison." And they'd go, "What? It just doesn't fit."
Right.
That trend has continued. And so we've become a family of churches that is much more diverse when people have come in to our churches because they see something that they like within a local church that attracts them. They bring with them their own theological heritage, their own background. And as a result of that, I think the sense of loyalty to a larger cause, to the larger denomination, has been diluted. People are less interested in what we do as USMB or global MBs. They're more interested in their local church because that's what attracted them to become MB.
Yeah.
And our pastors are much more diverse. Very seldom anymore do we find pastors who have an MB background. And they bring with it their own theological training, their own theological perspective. And so we've grown more diverse. That's a good thing. But some of the loyalty towards who we are as a people and a sense of commitment to that seems to have waned over the years. And for that, I wish that were different. I wish there was a way that we could foster a deeper love and an appreciation for who we are as Anabaptist evangelicals or evangelical Anabaptists. Fast to an Anabaptist understanding of the Bible, of Scripture, of our faith, but at the same time, a strong commitment to who Jesus is and the necessity of a personal relationship with him. All of those things are things that I want us to hold tight to. But at the time, I would love to see us engage more as people who are committed to one another, living in community, understanding Scripture in community, and having a commitment to live that out faithfully as churches within our national family.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I think I've noticed that as well. And it's interesting too, because obviously in this whole scheme of church history, obviously our involvement is relatively short. But even since I've been around, I don't know if you've noticed this, Tim, but I've felt what you've seen where there's been kind of this pull away from denominationalism. But I wonder if we're kind of maybe on the swing back towards it. I've noticed even in the past handful of years whenever there's been, unfortunately, quite a few scandals in churches, right? Thankfully, not too many in our MB family, but nationwide, a lot of the kind of big name churches, there's been a lot of scandals. And a lot of the time it's because those leaders didn't have healthy leadership accountability, right? They kind of grew to be a brand on their own. They weren't really held accountable by outside leadership, and that kind of caused the downfall of some pretty major churches. So at least maybe it's just my youth and I haven't been around as long, but I kind of see a little bit of a swing back towards that as we're realizing, no, denominations are important for many reasons, and one of them is that leadership accountability. Have you noticed that at all? What are some other kind of main benefits that you see to staying in a denomination?
Well, obviously, there's a support that you get. And oftentimes you don't need that support until something drastic happens. And,
Right.
alluding to that, whether it's a moral failure with a pastor, or perhaps it's, just a conflict within the church or theological issues. And most churches just kind of move along in a sense of stasis until an event happens
Yeah.
and need some support. And
Mhm.
that's when being part of a denomination can be incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
We this last year, as one of our Southern District churches went through a bit of a crisis.
Mhm.
For us as a denomination, as a district leadership group, to come in and undergird them and try and help them work through some of that conflict. I think they've been appreciative.
Mhm.
Typically, churches just kind of go along on their own until something like that happens. But that's definitely a part of what
Yeah.
is important for being a part of a family.
Mhm.
Beyond that, and I just think, here's what I tell churches that are looking to join our district, and we've had several in the last number of years. What I tell them is churches aren't made to be Lone Ranger churches.
Yeah.
Christians need to be Lone Ranger Christians. We're intended to live in community, accountability, encouragement, support. All those things are an important part of being a believer as an
Mhm.
individual.
Yeah.
It's just as true for churches. And when churches go off the rails, oftentimes it's because there's not some of that support and accountability within a larger denominational or familial structure. As I look at the New Testament, I don't see it verse by verse, but what I see in the whole of the New Testament is this commitment to being a part of a movement, the family of God. And whether it's Jews and Gentiles, or whether it's, Corinth or Philippi, the intent was we're part of something larger than just ourselves.
Right.
And it calls encouragement to pass these letters that I write to you along to others is, I think, a statement that we need to understand we are not just this little isolated group of Christians that doesn't have a relationship or shouldn't have a relationship with others. So,
Yeah.
in the churches, I just don't, no, I'm sorry, you're missing a big part of what I think we're called to in Scripture.
Yeah. Yeah.
So sorry, that's a soapbox, but it's part of what I have seen and experienced over these 20 years.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. One thing I want to make sure we have a little bit of time to talk about is just the importance of succession. I think that's something that a lot of churches and religious organizations sometimes struggle with. But I appreciate both of you. You kind of let leadership know that you were kind of thinking that you might be on your way towards retirement. You gave plenty of time for them to work on a plan. Donna, I know that JL is picking up some responsibilities and you guys are working together so that you can make sure he's ready to go. Tim, I don't really know the status of the plan for whoever your predecessor will be, but I know, can you just talk a little bit about how you decided when it was time, why your decision process about how you can make sure the next people are prepared? Can you just talk about your perspective on that?
Sure. Well, obviously, someone stepping into this role probably isn't going to happen overnight.
Mhm.
I just felt like our district leadership needed to have enough heads up that they could at least be prepared to be searching, if not already in search mode. And so I'm really thankful that there is a search committee out that's going. I think they've even received some resumes. It would be wonderful if by the time I step away, which is going to be the middle of January of this coming year, that there would be somebody in place already. I'm not anticipating that necessarily will be true. It wasn't true when I stepped into this role. There was about an 18-month interim between Roland's ending his ministry and me starting mine.
Okay.
But I anticipate that they're going to do their work and do their best to find someone. Hopefully God has that person in mind already. In my mind, part of the reason for stepping away is simply because there needs to be a transition in leadership.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be in my role so long that somebody needed to come tell me, Tim, it's time.
Yeah.
And I have a sense, I could say the Lord is telling me that, but it's something that I feel pretty strongly about, that it's time for new leadership. And there are people out there that have that capacity, and I think God will call and we'll find that new leadership. So
Yeah.
it was just time for me to do that.
Yeah. That's good. And Donna, I want to hear from you too. We've kind of joked a few times, you're the mother of the denomination, or whatever we've been saying, but it's just true that when you're in your position, as long as you have a lot of information that no one else has, there are dots that you put together that no one else sees. So no, I'm sure that's a big part of what you're currently working on, is making sure JL and the staff is prepared. So can you share about that a little bit as well?
Yes. Well, actually, the plan is to hire another person probably next spring to take the admin part. There was kind of 3 big parts of my job, and so JL's taking 2 of them. But like I said, the job had kind of grown, and it's more than one person can really do. So, but I wanted to have plenty of time as well to train and pass along as much as I could of what I've learned over the years. So I'm actually not planning to leave until after the convention next summer.
Okay.
That way I can work with JL through another convention and the aftermath of that and wrap that up and then move out. So, we're hoping to have another person to join us maybe in June so I can train them with the admin part and all the things that go with that, as well as helping with convention. So I'm kind of easing out, and we joke that we're kind of easing into retirement. He's going to retire first, which totally isn't fair. But anyway, he will, and then I will, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I just felt it was important to have a bit more time, because throughout the year, especially in bookkeeping, there's a lot of seasons and year end and different things that I felt it was important to be a part of that.
Sure. And again, I applaud you, because I think that's wise for both of you to have that approach. That's good. So Tim, I want to hear a little bit more. I know part of your job, you travel you both travel quite a bit. You talk to pastors and leaders a lot. You kind of mentioned that the shift away from denominationalism is one of your concerns looking ahead, but you also mentioned that the diversity is a positive. What else are you, as you're changing in your role here, what else are you excited about? Is there anything else that you're kind of keeping an eye on to make sure we don't stray too far? What are some other kind of excitements or any other hesitations that you have looking forward?
Yeah. So one of the things that I'm excited about is the opportunities that are out there for growth within our district and the other districts as well, by assimilating churches that are either currently independent or looking for some level of affiliation. And at our recent convention in July, we received 4 churches into our membership. And some of those are church plants. One of those was a church plant. One of those was a church that was actually exiting another denomination and looking for a home that was theologically compatible. And then a couple of ethnic churches, one Congolese and one Ethiopian. And so we have a number of those opportunities. Those are things that I'm excited about. Some of those, especially the ethnic churches from Congo, have connections with missions work that our denomination has done over the years in Congo. And now as immigrant refugees coming back, they're looking for connections with evangelical, Bible-believing, conservative, Christian, Mennonite brethren churches. And so that's kind of fun to have that kind of come full circle, if you will.
Yeah.
Efforts over the years. It's always a joy to work with churches in terms of pastoral transition. It seems like every time you get to a point in your district where all the pastoral vacancies are filled, if that's ever a point, maybe there's been once or twice in 20 years where all of the pastoral vacancies, whether it's lead all the way down to, youth, worship, children's ministry, visitation, where they've all been filled. Most of the time, there's always a vacancy somewhere. And working with churches to try and help them transition through that that's been a joy
Mm.
as well. Try and be there for them and encourage them and work with the search committees and then meet the new pastors and try and orient them towards who we are as MBs and help them get a good foundation for ministry as they enter into whatever role they're being asked to serve at the local church.
Yeah, that's good. Very good. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this. So the previous episode, we talked with Terry Hunt, very similar conversation as he's preparing to step down. And I asked him this question. We talked about it quite a bit, so we'll keep it maybe a little bit briefer here. But I just find it interesting that both of you and Terry and then now Don are all stepping down around the same time. There is kind of this big leadership hole to fill for our denomination. And I think most people are assuming it's probably going to skew a little bit younger, maybe some fresh faces, or we're not sure who these new people are going to be. And again, with a change like that comes, I think, a lot of excitement. And I'm sure some people listening are a little nervous about four of you leaving around the same time who've been around for a very long time, steady leadership and very important roles. So can you talk about that a little bit? Are you excited about this? What are you thinking as we enter into this pretty big shift in our national leadership?
Well, just one of the things about that is we're all old. I mean, we've all had long ministry careers and are getting to the point where, there probably needs to be some transition. I'll be honest, my energy level isn't the same at 67 as it was at 47, and
Sure.
It's not that my passion has decreased, and the job has gotten bigger too. So that worries me a little bit for whoever steps into this. But it just so happens that that's the transition that we've come to, where we're all about the same age and sensing it's time. Now, what I'm a firm believer in is that God's got this.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to fret it. And so I don't worry about it.
Sure.
I'm curious and I pray about it. And I'm concerned, but kind of more like the concern of a dad for, a child who's kind of striking out on its own, and you have to step back and let them go and figure it out. And, Terry and I and Don and Donna will be around. We're not going anywhere. Our church is still Ridge Point Church in Wichita, Kansas, and we're going to be there. Who knows? Maybe until Brent does my funeral. But that if there's a need and there's a desire, I'm sure that I'm more than happy to throw my 2 cents into the hat for the benefit of whoever is serving. As a way of counsel and encouragement. But I want to also recognize that we are stepping away. And give room and space for whoever's coming next. Put their stamp, put their mark on ministry.
Yeah. Personally, I think we're entering in a really interesting time where we have I think it's a good, healthy mix where I think it is probably time for some younger leaders to rise up and to take those reins. But we have this wealth of knowledge that's going to be available. So I think we're kind of entering in an exciting time where we're going to have the benefit of youth and new perspective and diversity. But like you just said, you guys are still around and you're more than willing to share. So I think that's a good place to be. And I can't remember where I heard this. Maybe one of you will know, but I heard someone say recently that this is a good time to be an Anabaptist, which it seems like culturally we're in a time where people are interested in churches that are holding tight to Scripture. They are active in service. They tend to have a humble spirit. I think a lot of the things that MBs are kind of known for is what our culture is looking for in churches. So you mentioned, I think the combination of that, as well as some of the diversity that you mentioned in the recent years, I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great time for us to move forward. Any comment on that? Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, I would. Although, man, I've been hearing that since I first went to seminary back in the early 80s, right? The mid 80s. Mm-hmm. And, that this is a great time to be an Anabaptist. And you hear that from people who are not Anabaptists, but who are discovering that.
Yeah.
But there are also some warning signs that I think we as a church, and that's a little bit some of that's exemplified by our culture, which is in a constant state of conflict these days. And the church, I think, mirrors that. Oh yeah, there are just some distinctives about Anabaptists that I'm not sure. I hope we will hold on to moving forward.
I hope so too. I'm confident we will. But yeah, I agree with you. Okay, well, I want to get you out on this. Get you out on this note. So you guys have been serving faithfully. Donna, you mentioned that it's more than a full-time job. I know that, and I believe that. What are you excited about? I know Terry. When we talked to Terry, he said that one of these days we'll have you on again, and you guys will be live from a fishing boat somewhere. You're not even going to be paying attention to my questions, but you'll still humor me and talk to me from a fishing boat somewhere. So I know fishing is part of the equation, but what else? Looking ahead, what else are you excited about?
Well, there's things that we'll miss for sure, but yeah, I'm looking forward, of course, to spending more time me and Grandma and Grandpa going to our grandkids are getting bigger and are active in events and stuff, so we'll be freer to attend more ball games and events. I'm also just looking forward to time of rest, more time for me to hopefully serve in the church. Like I have not felt like I've had time to do that for the last several years. So being more involved in the church and more regular in attendance. And yeah, just in our neighborhood, there's 3 of us that are kind of the old people on the block, I guess, in our cul-de-sac, and 2 of them are already retired. So I see them outside pettering in the yard and doing different things and, just like living life. So I think that's what I want to do, just life without all the pressure. And, I know we'll still be active and we're looking forward to what God would have for us next, but also just more time to enjoy life, slow down, think about what God wants us to do. And we're trying to read the Bible and just all sorts of things that way. Yeah. Free of life.
Probably all those things. One of our churches, when I announced my retirement, a church that I worked long and hard with, and we had at times kind of butted heads over things, and then worked through that and have developed an affinity in my heart for them, and I think that is reciprocated as well. But the pastor told me, he says, "Pastor Tim, you can't retire. We're just now kind of getting to know you and experience your counsel and encouragement." And so I look forward to maybe still doing that to some degree. Again, I want to give space for whoever the new guy is to become the district pastor to the pastors, and kind of the overall pastor of the district. But at the same time, there's a lot of relationships that we have created or God has allowed us to enjoy over the years that I'm going to grieve if all of a sudden those just disappear into thin air.
Right.
So it's to continue from time to time to go visit, just be an encouragement, a friend, and pray for our churches. So, that passion for our district and our churches doesn't go away.
Sure.
But the nature of the ministry is going to have to change.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So beyond that, then, fishing. Over the last 10 years, the time that I have spent either on the water or in a tree stand has just increasingly diminished to the point that I find it very hard to have free time to get out and do those things. And I'm looking forward to kind of rekindling something that feeds my spirit. That rejuvenates personally. Yeah.
It can be very life-giving to have those kind of hobbies. So I affirm that, and that's great. I'm glad you're going to be able to do that. Well, Tim and Donna, both of you, I just want to take a minute just to publicly thank you for your ministry. You guys have been just steady leaders for, as long as I've been alive. And I'm just so grateful for that. Like I mentioned earlier, our denomination is just full of steady leadership, and you guys have been a great example of that. So thank you for your service. And you're not done yet. We're gonna make sure you work hard these last few months, but thank you, and I hope you just really enjoy this transition to retirement. You've done an excellent job, so thank you both.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it. We've been blessed.
Well, once again, thanks to Tim and Donna, both for their years, their decades of service, and for their time here today on this episode. And one kind of cool thing, after we finished, recording, Donna and Tim both kind of just reiterated that throughout their 30 years of ministry, they really did view it as a partnership in ministry. Whenever Tim would travel to speak to a church, Donna was always there, and she would always serve in whatever ways the church needed, and she was always quick to help serve other spouses at other conventions and things like that. And I just think that's a really cool example and a model for all of us to follow. For those of us who are married and in ministry, whenever it's possible and realistic, to really view it as a partnership where we serve together. It's just a really cool picture to see the Sullivans model that so well. So well done, Tim and Donna. All right, and with that, let's go ahead and wrap it up. So thanks again so much for listening, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time here on Lead Pods.
Thanks for listening to Lead Pods. Make sure you don't miss an episode by subscribing to our show wherever you're listening today. Learn more by visiting usmb.org, and be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We'll see you next time as we learn more practical tools to increase our impact together.